What's up, guys? Um, Today we're going to talk about auto brokers. Basically, what are they? What do they do? What should they be doing? What sometimes happens? Um, yeah, just wanted to kind of give an overview of the profession and what the job entails and what your kind of day to day is, and then I want to touch on some ideas of like the broker code of like what gets you paid, what are you supposed to do, what are you not supposed to do. Just to kind of start out, I want to just explain like what is an auto broker. So an auto broker is basically someone that has clients and buyers, right? Buyers and cars, because that's really kind of the two things in the world, right? You have the asset, which is the car, and then you have the client, which is the buyer or potentially a seller, right? So these auto brokers are the guys that facilitate deals through these clients. And so typically, uh, you know, they operate independently. A lot of these guys, I mean, sometimes they are, guys that operate in a dealership, because it's kind of the same way, except the dealership has a physical entity, and these brokers are kind of remote, so they can work from their house, they can work from anywhere in the world as long as they can text or send pictures or whatever. Um, so yeah, there are, depending on the state, there are like licenses that you have to get to operate as a broker. I know dealerships have like pretty strict laws around paying brokers for transactions and stuff like that. But yeah, there is some gray area in that, like, guys do sometimes, facilitate deals that are even off market or don't run through a dealership or private sale. Um, and they get paid on those deals. It is possible. That's kind of the gray area. It gets a little murky in that world where, like, if you have a relationship with a client and then they sell directly to another, like, sell their car to a buyer, you can basically set up an agreement with them saying like, okay, you got to pay me 3% of the sale price, right? And it's a little bit more like the real estate world where sales guys, they get a percentage of the sale. I actually would love to try and work towards that. A lot of brokers actually will, like, quote unquote, hide their profit. So we have Pocket, which is basically the tech company that's for auto brokers, so that they can essentially run their business. The entire business happens through that. And so we have a dealership entity which you run stuff through, but we actually allow the ability to hide profit as well. So an example would be like, say you're buying like a, I don't know, used 458 or something like that, right? Say, you got it from the client for 220, right? You're buying it from the client for 220. You go, you sell it to somebody and you say, all right, are you willing to buy this car at 250? And the guy's like, yeah, I'm good with that. 250. All right, you're good at 220, you're good at 250. Great. The delta between those two is the profit, right? So what Pocket allows us, us auto brokers to do is that you can essentially structure a deal that way, and then the profit gets paid out, the difference between the two, the 30,000, and then of course Pocket takes a fee for running that transaction. But that's another way that you can structure deals where, as long as the buyer and seller are happy, you take the profit in between. So kind of the margin. But anyway, so that's basically the structure of like what a card or an auto broker does, and the difference between the dealerships. You know, it's an interesting thing for an auto broker if you haven't worked at a dealership prior. So for me, I was able to work at a couple Highline dealerships in Beverly Hills, went from Aston Martin to Lamborghini to Ferrari. So I accumulated a lot of clients through that. So, for me, it was a lot easier to transition into the auto brokering world because I I you know I had all the clients. I had the cars and I had the buyers and sellers, and then I I actually left Ferrari and started my own dealership for a while in Los Angeles. But it was essentially brokering because we were more of just like a man cave warehouse where we had cars. It was really cool space. But it, ultimately it was a dealership, right? We were a physical dealership, but we were brokering on top of it. So, um, that being said, for an auto broker, kind of the way, if you don't have the ability to have that built-in client base, you know, you got to kind of just hit the ground running. If you want to be an auto broker and you want to be in this space, you got to get out there and start meeting people. You got to go to car shows and stuff like that and start talking to people. And, you're talking to a guy and he's got a 458 Speciale and you're like, that's a very cool car. Are you open to selling it if I bring you an offer? And then you hustle and you go try and find a buyer for it, right? And so you just get connected to people that way, and you bring them an offer, and if they take it, they take it, and that's how you start building out your Rolodex and so, anyways, the other side of it is also, because the established car world right now is really focused on the dealership, right? So dealerships have a big control over the industry. I believe that's going to be changing over the next 5 to 7 years, as you know manufacturers are going to start going direct to consumer, and so you're going to lose that human connection where you met the salesperson and you connect with them, and then you go to them whenever you have problems. If the manufacturer goes direct to consumer, like Tesla, it would be an example of direct to consumer. um, you kind of lose that connection with the salesperson, and so, there's going to be a bigger opportunity for brokers out there to kind of connect with these people that have cars and become their quote unquote car guy. So, as the industry shifts, it kind of in the same way that, like, if you think about the cab industry, with Uber, yellow cabs had just like such a chokehold on the industry. You basically had to go through these guys, and the experience was terrible. Think about that. Dealerships, experience is terrible, right? Everybody hates going to dealerships. One of the top worst things that anybody has to do is buy a new car. So if that's the established world, that's not going to last, right? That's the beauty of, a free market, is that people will go somewhere else. If this experience sucks, I will go somewhere else, which is partially why the online, um, you know, car world is kind of blown up with like Bring a Trailer and those sorts of things. And it's like, wait, you're telling me I don't have to go see a dealer? Sign me up. Like, tell me how to do that. So that's basically what Pocket's trying to do, is we're enabling brokers, right, to be able to transact from a buyer and a seller. They set up the deal, and then, as long as they're good with the pricing, um, then they can, make a business out of it, right? That's basically the I think the next 5 to 7 years. So, that being said, you still, at this time, we're not 100% there, so you got to have relationships with dealerships. So, for me, it's like I really highly value all of my dealership connections, because they do, at even right now, still have the control of the car world. They have big inventories, they have huge flooring lines, right? And eventually you still have to like get access to cars, and a lot of them go to dealerships right now. Um so I still value all my connections at Lamborghini. I have friends that run independent dealers, so those guys are super valuable to me. But I do think a lot of them are actually even, reaching customers through these online platforms. So, I know guys that, whether it's wholesale or even retail, that like the independent dealers, they're buying cars, at say Manheim or wherever, buying cars from customers, and then they're putting them up on Bring a Trailer. So, the space is definitely changing, and the buyer's confidence in buying cars online is now getting higher and higher. So they're really trusting these cars and buying them online. So it's a pretty fascinating thing. I still think, you still need to have inspections. So part of what Pocket has is they have the ability for, a buyer to inspect a car prior to them buying it, right? So you get a mechanic, someone that really knows cars. They go out, they inspect the engine, they inspect the paint, all of those things. Get a professional inspection, and then that way when you're buying a car, you know what you're buying and what you're going to get. That's like one thing I'm still shocked that like Bring a Trailer doesn't do. I mean, Bring a Trailer, you're just kind of buying it blind. I mean, I know tons of guys that have bought cars. They look incredible in the photos. Bought the car, they got it, and it's just like a big heap of shit. So it's interesting. I mean, as the car world shifts, we're going to start seeing the expectation of customers shift. So, one of my biggest things is that I would just love, after working in dealerships, I worked in dealerships for a long time. It's just not a good experience, right? Like you go in and you just already know it's like, okay, I'm going to try and keep as much profit as a dealership. And the person buying the car is like, I want to get the best deal. And then you just butt heads. And, these sales guys are very clever and they hide information and they switch things around on you. And the leasing is all fucked up, none of it's transparent. And it's like, the old saying of like, where there's mystery, there's margin, right? That's like an old classic sales guys thing. And that's what dealerships do, right? They create mystery and then that's where they make their money. And it's like such a bad experience. I just feel like, the transparency would be such a great shift for the auto industry and sales if we could structure it like a real estate agent, right? You just go in, especially on like high end cars, it would make a lot more sense, right? If you're selling $1 million car and you're just like, hey, dude, I need 3% if I'm going to sell this car, right? I'm a professional. I'm going to get it sold for you. We're going to do it, exactly. You're going to have, very little risk throughout the whole transaction. We're going to have a escrow account, all of these things set up for the customer so that there's as little risk as possible. That costs money, right? That takes time and, we don't work for free. So it's an interesting thing. So that's kind of like, I always love to talk big vision stuff, but I think that's where the industry's going. Um, but, in terms of like, the existing world, I still think there's a lot of room for improvement. So, um, just a little, back to kind of auto brokering 101. Auto brokers tend to either have a buyer or a seller. So sometimes you can have like two brokers in a deal where one broker has a buyer and one broker has a seller, right? And typically what you do between the two brokers is you split the profit, right? I have some good buddies that I work with that are brokers. Every deal we just split the profit, right? So that's a pretty standard thing. It gets a little more complex when you add in. So sometimes with these like higher value cars, so say you're talking like an SP3, which I don't think any SP3s are off restriction. So this is hypothetical. With the Ferrari world, you're not supposed to sell a car prior to the restrictions by corporate, but off the record, it definitely happens. So in deals like that, you have to be very careful with selling cars that are on restriction. But anyways, let's just take an SP3 as an example. So, it's a $6 million car, right? So, sometimes what you'll have is someone's like, hey, I have a buyer that really wants an SP3, but he's got some strict requirements, right? So you can't just like go online and find an SP3. You can't go on to Auto Trader and be like SP3. Oh, great. Look here. There's 10 of them on here. What color do you want? Right. Those are so exclusive. They're off market. They're cars that can't actually officially be sold. So sometimes you don't necessarily have a car, right? Or you don't necessarily have a buyer if you do have a car. So what happens is you have multiple brokers in the deal. So you might have a broker with the buyer and a broker with the seller and then two guys in between, right? So then typically it really depends on the structure because if all the brokers are working equally, doing the same amount of work, trying to get the deal across the line, helping here, helping there, all the profit should be split evenly, right? But and this is an interesting topic because sometimes people will literally send one text message to somebody and then they'll be like, okay, all right, the profit in the deal's $250,000, so I would like a quarter of that. And you're like, Well, you didn't do anything. You literally just text messaged one guy, and then you think you should get an equal cut when this other broker over here was doing all the work, right? And he was like making orchestrating transport, getting contracts signed, doing all the actual work in a deal, which is what you should be doing. And everybody that's getting paid, if you're getting paid equal, should be doing equal work, and that doesn't happen. And so that's one of the things with Pocket. I would love to set an industry standard so that like there's an expectation for everyone of, if you're doing X, then you should get paid this, right? And so we have in Pocket, we have the ability to basically split up a deal. So say you have four brokers in a deal, you just go into Pocket when you submit the transaction. You have the buyer, the seller, agreed upon price, profit is in between. You just set up four brokers in there, and then you type in the split. So it's pretty seamless. It's a nice kind of way to structure everything, because ultimately, whoever submits the deal has the ability to, you know break up the splits a certain way. So yeah, it's I'm still working on trying to standardize everything. You got to get buy-in at a certain point from everyone. And I don't think I'll change the entire industry, but in the real estate world, there is kind of an expectation of like what a buyer and a seller does, right? And so I would love to work towards that, and hopefully we can like create some structure that is transparent with the buyer and seller, so everyone's happy, and it's not like you're not operating like a dealership without a dealership, right? Where you're hiding profit and then keeping the profit. Um, anyways, that's kind of my spiel on brokers today. I have you know pretty pretty opinionated thoughts on what brokers should do, and especially being in the industry for this long. But if you guys are, auto brokers and you're in this industry, I would love to hear from you guys. Also, download Pocket. So Pocket is, it's free for 7 days. So check it out. It's basically a platform for auto brokers to run their business from a showroom. Even if you don't have the car physically with you, it's a showroom that looks clean, and you can get photos done. And then you got a whole back-end CRM. You submit transactions, so the transactions run through the dealership, and you get paid out your money. So yeah, it's basically, I built it with my buddy Jeremy, who's the developer of everything. And we basically built it for myself. I was being selfish, because I needed a platform for this. So over time, we're like, wow, everybody has the same problem. So we built a business out of it. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, check it out. It's Pocket List. So like a Pocket List autos.com. So pocketlistautos.com. I'll drop the link in the description. So, you know, um, check it out and let me know what you think. If you guys have any ideas or thoughts on stuff to talk about, I'd love to hear about it. I'm open to whatever. I'm gonna try and get some more brokers on here, get their take on things, and maybe get some of their workflows, and kind of educate you guys so you can understand what the auto industry is, and where it's going. So thank you for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon. All right, later, guys.